Alright, so hey, this is a Pauldron I did for my Rupee Armor Link cosplay. I wasn't completely happy with it when I wore it to the con. If you look at the image on the right, you can see that the gold isn't coming through properly. There's a few air bubbles here and there. So what I'm basically doing here, I've heated the Wobbler using heat gun, gotten all the air bubbles out with a pin, poked it at an angle, then I've gone over with gesso, sanded it down, and then basically coated it in brown as an undercoat for the gold to come through. It's just a preference I do to make my golds more rich and just to make the shadows a bit deeper. So right here I'm dry brushing over the Pauldron in rich gold paint from Joe Sonia's, and then I'm basically going around the edges with the watered down version of the paint. If you've got a palette and you can water down your paints a little bit, I find that it makes them come out a lot brighter, a lot smoother. It doesn't make them so goopy and gross at times. It might take a few more coats, but it looks a lot better in the end, in my opinion. Alright, so these main raised areas, I've basically taken a sponge brush and I've taken most of the paint off it. Haven't watered down the paint this time. The idea is to make the brush as dry as possible. This is why it's called dry brushing. And then you put a bit of effort in and it will come out only on the raised areas of the Pauldron in this case. And then basically what I'm doing here is I've used a combination of my finger and a smaller brush with a square tip just to feather it out and blend out the edges. If you look at the example on the right there, I've tried to make sure that there's a shadow around each of the edges, but there's just a smooth gradient with the gold. I prefer this a lot to just spray painting over my props. I find that especially on the con floor, people miss out a lot of the detail. You won't be able to see it. So it's a bit of a bummer when I see props that have so much detail put into them and then you can't really see a lot of it because of a really simplistic paint job. So that's the purpose of all of this. Takes a lot longer, but I think the result is well worth the amount of time you put in the end. Right, this is an ink I've gotten from Citadel Miniatures. It's actually discontinued right now, but you can get the same effect by watering down a mixture of red and brown paint. I've basically gone over all of the Pauldron, all of the gold, and it comes out a bit red here, so you might want to dab it dry with a tissue, but then it just gives it a more rich look. You can skip this step if you want, it's just the style I go for. Citadel's inks have a bit of gloss to them though, so you'll want to photograph your Pauldron or whatever you're using under a few different light sources, just so you can see what it looks like. In this case it came out a bit too strong, so what I'm doing now is dry brushing over again with pale gold from Joe Sonia's, just to make sure that it doesn't come out weird looking in real photos. This is another ink I've gotten from Citadel Miniatures called Black Ink. I think it's under Nuln Oil right now. It might be a different mix. You can get a similar effect by using black paint, but it won't come out quite as well. I use it a lot for rivets, bolts and stuff, and it basically emphasizes a lot of the shadows if you go around all the edges and makes the raised edges pop a lot more. You can use it in conjunction with silver paint if you're doing gold around just the very raised edges. It's an optional thing and it depends what kind of style you're going for, whether it's a more cartoony sort of armor or whether it's realistic. You might want to blend it in a bit more or only do it on certain edges to make things highlighted, but I think sometimes it has a really good effect, so I used it here just for a last minute detail thing. And here I'll give you a photo of the finished product, I guess. So I hope this tutorial thing helped a few people out there, even if your projects aren't exactly the same as what I've done here. Hopefully there are a few tips in there for you, and good luck with your cosplays. See ya.